So how would you limit that traffic? Is that like on the switch that you could regulate that, or is that something else? Like, what's the
Yeah.
solution?
So great topic here. So multicast messaging, I don't know how far back it dates in general, but in the context of industrial automation systems, certainly multicast messaging exists in multiple platforms. There's a version of it in GE PLC platforms. But in America, we know who's king as far as the control platform space. And so when Rockwell added the implicit messaging side to their platform, so not explicit, that is very clearly one-to-one messaging, they added implicit messaging, which is in, there's multiple names for it: publish, subscribe, produce, consume, implicit messaging. They've gone back and forth on this a lot, and they've made changes over the last several years. But for a significant period of time, produce, consume messaging was by default inherently multicast messaging, meaning if you set up a producer of a tag, great. Even if you only set up one consumer of that tag from the programming standpoint in the PLC program, the issue is the producer is putting that on the wire as a multicast message. And here's the thing about multicast messages: that destination of 239, it literally maps explicitly to a specific MAC address. Those MAC addresses are never the source of traffic, meaning that a switch is never going to learn where it is located. In other words, it's always unknown. Where is this device? So a switch's default behavior is to flood traffic like that. So an unmanaged switch is going to flood every single multicast frame it sees. A managed switch that hasn't been configured properly is going to flood every multicast frame. So what's supposed to happen is, in multicast messaging, there needs to be kind of a cooperation of your end device platform and your network infrastructure. So the feature that we're talking about here is IGMP. The job of IGMP is that you effectively have two roles: querying and snooping. And the whole function of IGMP is when a new multicast stream hits a network, it's going to flood at the beginning. But when it hits your query, or the switch or router that's performing the query role, he's like, ooh, there's a new multicast stream here. I'm going to ask who wants this. He's going to send out an IGMP query message. PLCs that have been configured to be a consumer of that data, based on being configured in their PLC program to be a consumer of that multicast stream, they're going to raise their hand. They're going to submit what's called an IGMP join message. And then the second function here, that's what IGMP snooping is. That is the switches running IGMP snooping, listening on this conversation that is taking place between the queryers and the consumers. They're taking those join messages and they're building up now a new database, not the regular unicast MAC forwarding database. It's a multicast forwarding database saying, for this tank level, I got a join message on ports 2, 6, and 8. Next time it comes in, I'm only going to send this traffic to 2, 6, and 8. I'm not going to bother everybody else with it. So here's the beauty of it. We have a network right here. We have managed switches, but we still have multicast flooding. So what's going on? I poke around the switch configurations, and I'm assuming I switched back and you guys have this, right?
Yep. Yes.
I poke around the switch configuration. Step one, great. IGMP snooping is running everywhere. We are 50% of the way there. The problem is the IGMP querier function is not enabled anywhere. So if no one ever asks the question, this traffic continues to flood. So I asked the engineering manager, I kind of talk him through it. I tell him like what's happening and that there's an easy way to resolve this. And it's literally one line of configuration. I can put it in this center switch. And I explained the whole thing to him. He's like, we got to call this IT company. They manage the switches. I explained it all to them. They're like, what's the line you want to add? So I tell them, and they're like, what is it to remove it? I'm like, the same line with the no in front of it. They're like, whatever, do whatever you want to do. So I tell the engineering manager, here's what I'm going to do. And he's this big old Irish guy that I love to death. And he looks at me, he's like, and everything's going to go green. And I was like, yeah, that's the hope. So this is like maybe 10 seconds after I make the change and we see some of these links are going green. And then on this next screenshot, I'm going to like acknowledge the status changes. Everything's gray now, meaning it's come underneath. And if I kind of scroll in on those utilizations that were 5.3 and 5.6, here's what they were really supposed to be. The traffic that's intended to be on those links. I mean, one of those says 0.008. And instead it was getting 5.8. So I'm sure if we looked at a post capture, that 6,500 packets per second dropped sub 30, sub 20 in the broadcast domain. And literally the engineering manager pulls up his phone because it was frequent enough to where like he could just stare at his phone and like wait for a PLC down notification to come in. And he's just like, my emails have stopped. Because like immediately this problem is resolved. He runs to the next room. He comes back in with this big 24 by 36 set of drawings. And he goes, we're about to build the biggest dairy in the world, and you're going to help us do it. And we got to do this project, which was, I'm talking, it is the largest one in the world. And from an automation device perspective, we're talking about thousands of end devices, hundreds of PL, even just the switch infrastructure for just the control system network is in the hundreds of layer 2 switches. It has like 20 to 40 layer 3 switches on the back. I mean, it is a monster. But comparing that original network, which eventually we went back and retrofit and redid that one, versus the new one from just a planning perspective of proper hardware, proper configuration, VLAN and IP schema in pursuit of a company that was going to grow to be a global brand. Like I said, it's a billion dollar company now. Getting all those things built foundationally were so substantial to them, and I'm so happy to get involved that early in the process. You know, before they built this new plant, like it's really just kind of an honor to get to work on those sorts of things at that sort of scale.